Okay, here we go. Oh yeah, go ahead.
So we can like open up these.
Yes.
Like, oh,
Really?
So nice.
And we just have to
Absolutely.
go to our classroom for that, right?
Sorry?
Our Google Classroom for that, right? If they're on Google
Keith.
Classroom.
Oh, these things?
Yeah.
They're on the website, the school website.
So then we have to go through your name.
Yes. Yes.
So wait, is the test on like?
Why'd you say wait?
I don't know. Potter.
Okay, what's your question?
Is the test on like the Kia stuff we did? Like
Yes.
all that?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
oh, okay. So you sent a remind that we're supposed to go to a history teacher and ask about a test. I did that last week, and then Miss Krebeck didn't know what to talk about.
Oh, she should have.
Well, she knew. She didn't know what she was supposed to tell me, but she knew what.
Well, she should have, because I gave her the information. So you and I can sit down.
Okay.
On Friday?
That's what I'm saying.
When is that?
Yeah, when is it?
Oh, probably Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say Thursday.
Thursday.
Okay, here we go. We are continuing to look at what impacted the creation of the Constitution. That's what we've been sort of looking at. And here's another one. It's something called the Charter of Rhode Island. Does anyone know what a charter is?
It's
It's
like
a
it's like
The Magna Carta?
that's what they. I don't know.
Kind of, yeah. A charter is permission to exist. So if any of you wanted to start your own business, you can't just decide to build a building downtown Somerset and then sell saddles. You need permission from the state of Wisconsin to do so. That's a charter. The Charter of Rhode Island was a permission slip from the king to form Rhode Island. And in the charter, it said these two things. One, there was no official religion in Rhode Island. I have a question for you. Does Wisconsin have an official religion?
No.
It does not. Does anyone know why?
You're free to practice any religion.
I'm sorry?
You're free to practice any religion.
Very good. Because of the First Amendment, which says that you're free to choose whatever religious practice you want, including, by the way, the exercise of no religion. Well, where'd they get that idea? Well, partly from this, from the Charter of Rhode Island. I'm giving you a chance to sit there because you said you could handle it today. Prove it. If you can't, we can move you. That's fine. By the way, no big deal. If you move it, who cares? And then here's something else that was sort of unique. In other colonies, you had to belong to the official church of the colony to vote, but not Rhode Island. Again, today, do we have any official religion that says you have to be this religion in order to vote? The answer is no. It doesn't matter what religion you are, in fact, including no religion. Anyone can vote. You just have to be old enough. You just have to be a citizen of the state you're voting in. And in some states, you can't be a convicted felon. I don't know about Wisconsin. I don't know the answer. Okay. Any questions here? Let's keep going. So we're continuing to look at what influenced the writing of the U.S. Constitution. And we're looking at this big idea. So I'm gonna read it over, and then if you have any questions, please ask me. But remember, if you're thinking, gee, I have a lot to write, that's if you choose to write it. I never said you had to write this stuff. It's available on the website. It's there already. But I used to have a professor that said you have a little brain in your fingers, and that's the brain that needs to be learning this stuff. And the best way to do it is to write it. So I used to write this stuff down. But again, it's up to you. So has anyone ever heard of this thing called the Enlightenment? Ever heard of it? Okay, you've heard of it. Excellent. Have anybody in here ever heard of the Dark Ages or the Middle Ages? We've all heard of that stuff. Okay, when I say Dark Ages or Middle Ages, what images come to mind? What do you think of? Go ahead.
Castle.
Yes, castles. Kings.
Peasants.
Very good.
Nice.
Knights.
I got one more. Diseases.
Very good. The Black Death, right? That's all true. The Middle Ages, the Dark Ages, it's when the Black Death wiped out a third of Europe, and that's true. This was true in the Middle Ages. This is the feudal order, feudalism. So the higher up you went, the more power you had. So at the top was the Pope. But the fewer of you there were. That's why the Pope is a point. There's just one Pope. And then there were some kings, and then there were more nobles, and more knights and then a bunch of peasants. But the lower down you went, the less power you had, but the more of you there were. So there were a lot of peasants, but they didn't have much power. There was one pope, and he had a lot of power. And please note this, where did you get your authority? Where did kings get their authority? The simple answer is just look above. Where did kings get their authority? From the pope. Where did nobles get their authority? From the king, et cetera, et cetera. Just look above and you will identify the source of your authority, okay? And during the Middle Ages, everybody lived on these manors, and there was a king who lived in a city far, far away, and there was this pope. And if you were a peasant, you lived on the manor of the local lord or knight, whatever. And then Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492. And that was a discovery. And so people started saying, well, gee, what else is out there? And the printing press certainly spread education. And so the Enlightenment is the emergence from the Dark Ages, when inventions were created, but so scientific discoveries, but also something called political discoveries. People started thinking about this and saying, you know what? This isn't right. This is not right. Kings don't get their authority from the Pope. Kings get their authority from the peasants. Don't look above, look down. That's where the authority comes from. This is called consent of the governed. The king gets his authority because the peasants consent to give him authority. We choose you as king. We choose you as king, not the Pope. Don't look above, look down. And in exchange, this is so that idea that we choose you to be our leader, which makes us the leader. We're really the leader, but we're going to let you rule, but really we're ruling because we picked you. Okay? That's called consent of the governed. And then there's something called the social contract. We'll choose you to be our king. In exchange, you will protect us. There's a contract. There's a two-way street. We pick you, you protect us. That's the social contract. And then the third big idea was this concept that today we hold as self-evident, and that is equality. No one has more political power than anyone else. One person, one vote today. Equality. Back then, kings are equal to peasants. Are you nuts? We're not equal. I'm better than you. We know it. You're a global chip. We're better than you, and we know it. That's dodgeball. That's a good movie. Any questions here? Right now. Again, all of this is available on the website. It's all there. Let's advance. This is sort of interesting in that as we've been going over these slides, I've been telling you, all right, this had a major impact on the Constitution, and so did this, and so did that. Wisconsin has its own Constitution. And I am showing you what is in Wisconsin's Constitution that is not in the U.S. Constitution. It's just a way of, if I were to say to you, all right, what's the difference between Wisconsin's Constitution and the U.S. Constitution? Here they are. It says right in the Constitution, you cannot be put in prison for owing money. You can't. So you borrow a massive amount of money and you spend it on a house and then you go into default. And the bank says, arrest them, throw them in jail. They owe us money. You could just say, Wisconsin Constitution, eat it. Second guarantee is this. An alien has just as much right to own property in Wisconsin as a Wisconsin resident. And right now, some of you are thinking little green men can own property. And I didn't say that. I said alien. And again, some of you are like, yeah, little green men. No. What's an alien? Yes.
Someone from like, yeah, different areas.
Somewhere else. Someone from somewhere else. That means I live in Stillwater. I have every right to own a nice little cabin in northern Wisconsin. I can do that. Someone from Canada can own land in northern Wisconsin. a non-resident alien. Well, sorry, resident alien. Okay. The third one basically says that the military has to answer to the governor. Right? So in other countries, the general will overthrow the president to take over. Dictator. You can't do that here. So relax, Governor Walker. When you get overthrown by the government, you can just say, Wisconsin Constitution, eat it. And the general trying to overthrow you will say, darn it. I almost had you. Stupid Wisconsin Constitution. Let's go, Bill. And they'll walk off. He and Bill will just walk off and they'll kick a rock.
They met in college.
Okay, the last two I think are the most interesting. Can they have church services in this building? Yes, they can. Yes, they can. It's well, I didn't say that. Very good. Very good. In fact, they used to have church services in the gym. Not in the gym, in the multipurpose room. I think it's called Bridges Church. They built it. They built their new church. It's right on the highway towards Stillwater. Before, as that building was being built, they had their services right here. And some people said, well, wait a minute, you can't do that. This is a public school. You're affiliating school with religion. You can't do that. Wisconsin's Constitution says as long as the building isn't being used for another purpose, school, go ahead. Go ahead. You can use it for church purposes as long as there's not something else going on. And my favorite one. Did you know that you have the constitutional right to hunt and fish in Wisconsin? You have the so go hunting and fishing anywhere. And when they say, hey, you can't get in school, you can say, Wisconsin Constitution, eat it. I have the constitutional right to go fishing. School schmool. Okay, I'm not sure how that'll work for you, but give it a shot. Okay, any questions here? Okay. I'm giving you a 2-minute break so I can set up my next little thingy here. So got 2 minutes to, do you need to get a quick drink? Fine. Some of you took kind of a long time last time I did this. If that continues, we'll not do these break things. But if you need to go get a quick drink, just go get a drink, come back. See you in 2.
Dude.
No, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna
Pull that on the board.
speed Connor, I'm gonna get here as fast as I can.
What does the Wisconsin Constitution taste good?
Come on, hop along.
Seeing as I have to eat it so often.
When you have flex time, where do you go?
Me?
Yeah.
Any other place somewhere?
You don't, do you go there?
Yeah,
Do you ever go anywhere else?
yeah, I've gone to them. Yeah.
How's that?
I like that one.
Any of you go to like somewhere else?
I think the
Sometimes go to
library.
the-
Yeah, I've gone to the
resource
library like
room,
once.
or the resource room in Navyard, and 3 places.
Yeah.
Oh,
Or, yeah.
I thought you could go to the front lobby.
I think
That's
you
why they have the
could.
NPR
You
now.
can
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Because they don't like
Yeah, 'cause
people
it's too
coming in
loud.
and seeing everybody on their phones.
So you're not supposed to.
We don't want the truth out there.
Yeah.
Well, Miss Dawn said it was because it's too loud, but maybe that is.
Maybe the throw is just awesome.
Thanks for making it feel good, Potter.
That looked like a good throw to me.
You didn't get anything?
Did you get an energy drink?
Kickstart.
Does it look like we're all back?
No.
No, Jay and
I hear Jimmy.
Do you have this spreadsheet, those of you who made one? If you didn't bother making one, that's quite all right. I never told you you had to do it, but I did recommend that you made it. If you have this bad boy, there's one right there. Mason's got one. If you have it, retrieve it. If you don't, that's fine. Just get your documents out. The actual documents.
Mr. Potter,
Yep.
do you have another?
Yeah.
One?
Right.
Right.
Anybody else need another copy, which is quite all right?
I wasn't here, so.
Well, I didn't give mine.
We
We're on Friday.
I got mine on.
Nick, have you seen here?
Oh, yeah, I got this from Walmart.
Oh, yeah, it was.
1 through 4.
no, we had to do number 3 on Friday.
Did you miss it yesterday?
No, I mean not Friday.
Documents out. We should, you need a new copy? We should all have covered documents 1, 2, and in a way 3 and 4. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. If somehow you tricked the system so that you were in Wallen's room and he didn't, and then you were in my room and I didn't or something, way to go. You fooled us. Good work, I guess. But, and not to worry, it'll be fine. You'll be just fine if you somehow missed a day or two. Okay, no big deal. We're going to cover documents 5 and 6 and 7 all at the same time because they all make the same argument. It's just a matter of which one do you find to be the best one for you. They're all making the same argument, so go ahead and just write 5, 6, and 7. They're all going to make the same argument. Okay? So 5, 6, 7. So I'm gonna let you just try and figure this out. Now, it might mean you're filling it in on your little spreadsheet, and that's great. If not, that's fine too. Just circle it right on this piece of paper. Who are the speakers of all 3 documents? Identify who's saying the document. Who's the person making the statement? What's the credibility of that person? Why should we listen to this person? And then see if you can figure it out. And I guarantee if you can figure one out, you've just figured all 3 out. Is it arguing that the Americans were or weren't justified? Yes or no? Yes, they were justified, or no, they weren't. And can you figure out why? And I guarantee it's one of these 4. It's making one of these arguments. Which one seems to fit? And as soon as you figure out which one of these arguments fits one of those 3, you've just figured out all 3. Okay? I'm going to give you till the big hand is on the 8, so you got 2 minutes. I don't think you'll have trouble. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to help you. Well, no, she's not afraid of you anymore, Randall. Looks like you're out of a job. Mom, there's a gator! Another one! That's the best line. She says, another one. like there have been gators in their house before. There's a gator.
What is
The gator.
Yeah.
Give me that shovel. What movie? Monsters Inc. Right? Monsters Inc.
Yeah.
And then we're supposed to get like
No.
Me too.
I don't know.
so are we just doing A parts but on here?
This is a lot. I know many of you have had this thing called aparts. I hate aparts. It drives people crazy. In essence, we're doing the same thing. I'm just not calling it aparts.
We're calling it.
Yeah, I've never seen
Right, exactly. Well, we're calling ours Jessica Yaquag. So next time,
Nailed it.
for Mella or Wallen or Krivik say, where's your parts? You can just say, we do the Kisikahi. Eat it. That's the theme today. Eat it. Okay, rapid fire here. Again, you are only responsible for one of these three. So just pick the one that you like the best. Which one has kind of the juiciest quote? Anyone want to go with document 5? Anyone go with document 5? Well, let me ask these questions. Which document is document 5?
Document 5.
5. And who's our speaker?
1 second. John Dickinson and Thomas Jefferson.
Very good. You kept reading. You did what a lot of people don't do. Read until you find the answer. So many of us are, I don't see in the first line. It must not be there. No, it's in there. Just got to keep going. Very good. John Dickinson and Thomas Jefferson. I assume you've heard of Thomas Jefferson. Not so many people have heard of the first guy, John Dickinson. He was another person that is responsible for the Declaration of Independence. Now, there is another option. Did anyone else see? Who else could you say is the speaker?
I wouldn't document.
Anyone see who else might you say? Because it's a group. There's your group.
The British.
No, it wasn't a British official. Okay, let me read it as soon as you think you hear it. This excerpt is taken from a Declaration of the Causes and Necessity in Taking of Arms, issued by the Second Continental Congress on July 5th, 1775. The Second Continental Congress is your speaker. And there are some things where the speaker is the credibility. When I say the Second Continental Congress said, it's in there. The credibility is right in there. The Second Continental Congress. If you want to know who's the Second Continental Congress, they're the people that wrote the Declaration of Independence. Thomas Jefferson was part of it. John Dickinson was part of it. So you can say that Jefferson and Dickinson said, and if you want the credibility of Jefferson and Dickinson, the credibility is that they were members of the Second Continental Congress. That's who they were. Or you can simply say the Second Continental Congress said, and that would be fine too. Okay. Anyone want to, was it arguing yes, they were justified or no, they weren't?
Yes.
Yeah, they were. Okay. This is the Second Continental Congress. They wrote the Declaration of Independence. Why would they say, by the way, we shouldn't have done that? No, of course they're going to argue that they were justified in what they did. So the answer is yes. Yes, they were. And the quote, just write the ... choice. That's the whole thing. The ... choice. Anyone figure out the reason? Look at that last sentence. We are reduced to the alternative of choosing an unconditional submission to the tyranny of irritated British officials or resistance by force. Exactly. The British were using. They were mean. The British sure were mean. The word tyrant is not a praiseworthy term. If one of you were walking here and say, Mr. Potter, you're a tyrant, I wouldn't say, thanks, who are you?
I don't know what that means.
It means you're a meanie.
Oh.
You're mean. You're abusive. And what we need to do is figure out, well, what are some examples? And we will. I promise we will. Okay. Or maybe you like document 6 better, which is great. Which document is document 6? 6. And who's our speaker? Thomas Paine. Who's Thomas Paine? Very good. He wrote a book called Common Sense. Now, Thomas Paine is kind of cool. You know, there's Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence. And he wrote with big words, when in the course of human events, and as many Americans understood him back then as understand him today, which is to say very few, because he used big words. What we need is somebody who talks like the real people. See, what we got to do is declare independence of the British Maine. You're mean. And that's Thomas Paine. Thomas Paine argued that the British were mean using regular, simple language. You have Thomas Jefferson, oh, pish posh. Thomas Jefferson didn't laugh. He guffawed. Oh, guffaw, guffaw, guffaw. Thomas Paine, yeah. Now, listen as he's speaking. No man was a warmer, I'm reading the second paragraph. No man was a warmer wisher for peaceful settlement than myself before the fatal 19th of April, 1775. The moment the events of that day were made known, I rejected the hardened, sullen-tempered king of England forever. April 1775. Anyone know what happened on April 1775?
Lexington.
Very good. Something called the Battle of Lexington and Concord. Does anyone know any more than that?
The first shots of the
American Revolution, first shots of the Revolution. You see, by this time, the British had figured out that the Americans were secretly hiding guns, and they heard through a rumor that the guns were in this little town just slightly west of Boston. So they marched to the town. Well, someone figured out that the British were marching to the town. Exactly. So, very good. We know the story. So one guy got on his horse ahead of the British and warned them, hide the guns, the British are coming. Anyone know who that guy was? Paul Revere. By the way, he's the same guy that made this engraving. Same guy. Okay. By the way, when the British arrived at the city, they couldn't find the guns. You know what they did? They burned the city to the ground.
Oh, that's
Looking for the guns.
what's that called?
murder.
Oh, I know what you're talking about, the movie.
No,
Are you talking about the movie?
there's like they burned down one. It was like this big building, just one big building, and it was. They had I don't know what it's called.
I don't know what you're doing right now. Okay. No, it's fine. What you did is fine. Okay, again, same example. The British are mean. Do you like that one better? Go with that one. Or do you like document 7, which is just as good? It's from the Declaration of Independence itself. The speaker is the Declaration of Independence, no explanation needed. When you say that the speaker is the Declaration of Independence, no one's going to say, well, what's that? It's the Declaration of Independence, you moron. Okay. Go down to the very last sentence. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Why do we declare independence? Because the British were tyrants. They were mean. They were abusive. Which one do you like best? Document 5 or document 6 or document 7? I don't care. Pick one. Go with it. Okay. Go ahead. I don't have a pencil sharpener, so you're gonna have to like trade your pencil in for a pencil in the first drawer. They've been sharpened. Isn't that clever? Don't shepherd your pencil, just trade it in.
You think
All right.
I don't know what it means.
All right. By the way, we are not done, so we still have 20 minutes here. What we are now going to do is engage in the rough draft process of writing this paper. So the good news for you is I'm going to help you in the writing of this bad boy. I'm going to help you write this paper. Okay? In order to succeed in the writing of this paper, you have to decide if you think the Americans were justified in declaring independence or not. Now be careful. I am not asking you if you're glad we're a free country. Of course we're glad we're a free country. But my question is this, were these legit reasons? Were they really, were the taxes really not fair? Were the British really abusive? Or actually were the taxes fair, we just didn't want to admit it? And did we kind of exaggerate what the British were doing? Which one is more persuasive to you? Okay, so right now I want you to just take 10 seconds here and think about what you're saying. And I am also giving you permission. You can conclude that we were not justified, and that doesn't make you a bad person. It's just fine if you say, you know, the reasons we came up with kind of weak. Or perfectly fine.
I'm just saying, isn't that kind of like we are right now?
I don't know what you mean by that.
Like with the taxes? Like they're the exact same.
Taxes are exactly the same today as they were back then.
Well, I'm just saying like the basics, like they complained about how the taxes were.
Oh, yeah,
And today,
very good. People always complain about taxes. Taxes are always too high.
People
Everyone just says it.
don't want to pay.
People don't want to pay, but they still want the services those taxes provide. That's America right there. Okay. We just went through one of the largest tax cuts in history, but the government did not reduce spending one dime. So we're going to collect less money from you, but we're still going to spend just as much. That's crazy logic. Okay. So our goal by the end of the hour, if we finish this with 10 minutes left, great. You'll have 10 minutes to relax. Is to write the first paragraph. The only way we're going to do this is if you know what you think your opinion is. Were the Americans, did they come up with good reasons? Not, are you glad it happened? We're all glad it happened. But were the reasons they came up with good ones? Okay, so let's engage in the writing of the first paragraph. The first thing we're going to do is write a hook. Now, if you know what you're doing, go ahead. I'll give you a clue. The hook is a question. Do you know what you're doing? The hook is a question. If you know what you're doing, do it. Don't forget to indent. You're starting a paragraph. If you don't know what you're doing, wait about 10 seconds. I'll show you. But I'm a mother Boyd, and you're a baby Boyd. I want you to fly. If I grab you by the neck and then I fly and you stick your wings out, are you flying?
Yeah.
Kinda. Probably more like I'm flying and you're along for the ride. You're gonna fly eventually. By the end of the year, you will be doing all of this by yourself.
oh, fly.
But let's just take baby steps. Baby steps. Okay, here you go. There's the question. Word for word, that's your first sentence. Now, if you have something not exactly like that, but pretty much, great. Were the Americans justified in declaring independence and breaking from Britain? Now, if you just have, were the Americans justified in declaring independence from Britain? Yeah. If you didn't say and breaking, I'm okay. Okay, now you have to make a decision. You have to make a decision. Do you think the Americans were justified or not? If, okay, have we all made our decision? You got it in your head? Were the Americans justified? What's your next word? It's either yes or no. Okay. If you think the Americans were not justified, if you think the Americans were not justified, you will pay attention to what's under this square. If you think the Americans were justified, you will pay attention to what's under this square. You got it?
Got it.
These are your second, third, and fourth sentences if you think the Americans were justified. Yes, they were justified. These sentences, what's under here. If you think the Americans were not justified, these. If you write these as sentences 2, 3, and 4, these sentences become 5, 6, and 7. If you think these are your second, third, and fourth sentences, then these are your fifth, sixth, and seventh. It either goes or
Okay.
Do you know who you are?
Yeah.
Are you or Okay. So I have just revealed to you 6 sentences. There they are. What you have to figure out is what's the order. And I'll show you. These are your second, third, and fourth sentences. If you think the Americans were not justified, they weren't. Yes, they were. No, they weren't. Your mom. Some people believe the Americans were justified. But wait, I just said if you think they were not justified, these should be your right. But listen, if you think they were not justified, the first thing you're going to do is tell me that some people think they were.
Okay, I got it. All right.
If you, right, Vikings or Packers? Vikings, Packers, whatever, okay? What you do is you say, all right, let's just say you like the Packers better. What you do is say, some people like the Vikings better.
But
But I like the Packers better. You present the argument for the side you disagree with, and then the side you agree with. Look again. These are arguments that the Americans were justified, which is what you'd say first if you think the Americans weren't justified.
okay, click it.
So I'm just going to go back one more time and make you think about this.
No.
It's easy. Do you think the Americans were not justified? Then these are your next 3 sentences, followed by these. If you think that they were justified, these are your next 3 sentences, and then these. Just write the thing. Again, think about it. What you do is you make your decision, you argue the side you disagree with first, then the side you agree with. So all I have up here is pretty simple. It's a listing. Some people believe the Americans were justified for 2 reasons. First, the British were imposing unfair taxes. Second, the British were mean. Some people believe the Americans were not justified for 2 reasons. First of all, the British taxes were fairly imposed on the colonists. Secondly, the colonists exaggerated British abuses. Remember, this is one paragraph. So don't start over on the left-hand margin with the end of each sentence. Just keep going where you left off. Like you. Why is this word here? Why isn't it there?
I like
But it looks confusing now. It looks like you just started a new paragraph. This word some should be right there. Oh, don't erase. This is just a rough draft. But just when you type it. Okay. Don't keep starting over on the left-hand margin with each new sentence. You've just written 3 paragraphs. Why are you writing 3 paragraphs? This is 1 paragraph. Anyone confused? You're simply presenting the arguments you disagree with before you present the arguments you agree with.
So we're writing, so say if I, like, we believe, that, like, they were, so we write that side.
You believe that the Americans were justified?
Yeah.
Okay, then the first thing you do is argue that they weren't,
Okay,
and then that they were.
okay, so then we write, okay.
Okay, now I'm good.
You got it, okay.
That's what I was saying.
Right? Think of it, this is, what you're doing is you're writing a trial. You present the prosecution and then the defense. Assuming you're a defense attorney. Yeah. Assume you're a defense attorney. First you hear the prosecution's case, then you hear your case. Which side do you agree with? Those are your second set of sentences. The side you disagree with is your first set of sentences after you ask the question. You ask the question, and then you acknowledge their side, and they're wrong. And now my side, and I'm right. Damn it. And when I say damn, I mean D-A-M, the word damn. You build a dam, you dam it. You build a dam. Swear it. I realize that this is a bit of writing. Sorry. You have one sentence left. After this. One sentence. But I'll give you a chance to finish. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna ask a question. Let's say that I picked up one of those papers that you guys just read. Would I have any idea your opinion?
No.
Now, I would only because I told you to put your opinion as the second set of sentences. But if Schultze were to walk in here and read one of your paragraphs, you really would have no idea. He'd think you're confused. You're arguing both sides. There's no judgment on your part yet. You haven't picked a winner. Well, guess what you do in the thesis? Pick a winner. Okay? And it's phrased something like this. So again, let's go back to the Viking-Packer thing. Let's say I'm a Packer fan. The thesis is where you render judgment, and it goes something like this. While Viking fans think they have the better team because they've got a new stadium and they play in a bigger market, comma, the Packers are the better team because they actually win Super Bowls.
Ooh,
ouch.
Oh,
Ouch.
Okay, you see what I did there? I acknowledged the other side and then said, but this side's right. Think about this question. Were the Americans justified? While it appears that they were justified because taxes weren't fair and the British were abusive, in truth, they actually weren't fair because the taxes were fair and the colonists exaggerated. Okay? If you think the Americans were justified, write this sentence down. If the Americans are not justified, write this sentence down. Okay? Now, again, I realize that's kind of a long sentence. Sorry. What you're doing is you're acknowledging the two arguments for the side you disagree with, and then saying, but this is the real answer, whichever way it goes. So look, while it appears that the British taxes were fairly imposed and that the Americans exaggerated British abuses, in truth, the Americans were justified in breaking from Britain due to the unfair taxation and British abusive behavior. That's if you think that we were. If you think that we weren't, you just do it the other way. While it appeared that the British taxes were unfairly imposed on the British acted abusively, in truth, the Americans were not justified in breaking from Britain because British taxes were justified and Americans exaggerated British abuses. All I did was I put all four of these reasons into one sentence and said, this side's right.
I'm sorry for the interruption. There's been some confusion. C2 volleyball practice is at the elementary school tonight. C2 volleyball practice is at the elementary. Thank you.
Now it's clear.
7 times this way.
Once you're done with this, you're done. You're done. If you, by the way, want to get your phone out and take a picture of this bad boy, I think that's a great idea. I have no problem with that at all. You are all in a sophomore English writing class?
Yep.
English? So what we're doing is making it so that you're ready to write the paper in it.
Thanks for that. Very helpful.
You, once you're done, you're free to fart around on your phone.
I'll rewrite it.